Welcome back to the Lars Larson Show. Two are dead at Virginia Tech. We're still waiting for more details on a shooting that happened in Portland with only injured or wounded people. We've got Rob Cornilles on the line. We'll get to that. We're talking concealed carry. We're talking the Columbia River crossing. A lot of different issues to get into. If you want to join the conversation, that's easy enough to do. 866-HEY-LARS. That's 866-439-5277. Emails go to talk@larslarson.com. And a warm welcome goes to Rob Cornilles, candidate for Congressional District 1 as the GOP candidate. By the way, Rob, you know we did offer a very sincere invitation to your opponent. I'm not holding my breath for her to call back, though.
Well, I'm happy to be with you this afternoon, Lars. And, of course, it's a very sad situation at Virginia Tech. Our hearts and prayers go out to those victims and their families. But I would also tell you this is a very exciting day here in Oregon because of what we've launched in our campaign with a new ad about jobs. And there's good news for Republicans in Oregon. The Democrats must be nervous because they just put their first attack ad against me in the general campaign.
What's the essence of the attack ad?
Well, it's misleading and basically states some false premises about me. It suggests I want to cut Social Security and Medicare and privatize both of them. Just more of the same. It's taken right out of the Democrat playbook, and I've been very clear throughout the campaign that both of those programs need to be preserved. Obligation to seniors today and tomorrow, and that that I don't believe in privatizing them, but I believe in giving, especially on Medicare, I believe in giving people choice, just as about 254,000 Oregon seniors are enjoying right now through Medicare Advantage.
And by the way, choice in this case, tell me if this is the way it works. If I were on Medicare, and believe me, I'm getting closer all the time, that you'd let me take a voucher and spend my Medicare money where I want, or with the system I want, or buy the insurance I want, instead of telling me that there's a one size fits all.
Right. There's a program called Medicare Advantage, which was started in 1997, and as I said, we have 250,000 Oregon seniors right now who take advantage of that because they want choice. They want to be able to use private insurance to deliver their benefits. But the thing about this is that the Affordable Care Act, which was passed last year, which my opponent supports, effectively, according to the Medicare office in Washington, D.C., effectively that's going to cause about half of those 254,000 Oregon seniors off of Medicare Advantage. And the other thing it's going to do is it's going to force their rates to go up by about $473 a person next year alone. In 2017, it goes up to $923 additional out-of-pocket expense.
Well, that can't continue. And this is what they're going after now that they've hit you up on abortion last week.
Oh, sure. I mean, the bottom line is, Lars, my ad is about jobs because every Oregonian knows that is the number one issue that's facing our state, not to mention our country. If more people were working, a lot of our problems would be solved. However, my opponent's first ad of the new campaign season, her ad that was released today, she talks about her priorities. In that 30-second spot, she doesn't even mention the word jobs one time. So if she can't even mention it in her first ad, I don't think she's going to mention the word jobs when she gets back to Congress. I guess she's hoping to give people all the reasons to vote against you instead of good reasons to vote for her. Yes, she wants to, she suggests that I want to protect only the wealthy and all these other things. And again, it's just right out of the Democrat playbook. The fact that the National Democratic Party, the DCCC as they're called, are now involved in this race is frankly very good news because it shows we've got traction. We've got momentum. The fact that they're running negative attack ads against me in December when most people would rather be focusing on the holidays instead of a positive message like I'm doing, I think should encourage all of us. We got to keep pushing hard. Obviously, I need supporters. I need your listeners' help to fight against this attack so we can continue to portray a very positive, optimistic, forward-looking message for Oregon. All right, let's go after a couple of other things. The federal government gave the go-ahead on the Columbia River crossing. What do you say? Well, I say we got to get me back into office starting in January so that we have scrutinizing eyes looking at what's going on there. We have, as I understand it, at the earliest, ground would be broken 2 years from now, and that gives me 2 years to demand greater transparency, greater accountability, and then.
But Rob, hold on. Greater accountability and greater transparency. The project is one that is, I think, fundamentally flawed. It includes light rail that's been voted down. It includes a lot of money from the federal government for a bridge, way more than the bridge should cost, and we can give you concrete reasons for that. But merely asking that they show you, here's how we're spending your money, the way the voters have told you not to spend the money, I don't think goes far enough. I think you need to, at least my opinion is, I think you need to say that if elected to Congress, that you're not going to let the project proceed as it is, unless you're satisfied that it's all, about the way it should be, with just a little fine-tuning around the edges and the exact details of where the money's spent. And if so, say so.
No, I can't say I'm satisfied, Lars, because I don't have access to the data. I frankly don't know. But what I do know is that we have to improve the transportation system if we're going to compete.
Well, let me ask you this then. As the bridge is currently conceived, and I think we've done this before, but just make sure I understand where you are. The current bridge has 3 lanes south and 3 lanes north. The new bridge will have extra on-ramps and off-ramps, but it will still have 3 traffic lanes south and 3 traffic lanes north. Do you believe that for $3 billion, a bridge with the same number of traffic lanes on it is an improvement worth $3 billion?
Lars, I'm willing to look at that or any other proposal that will improve our ability to move cars and trucks.
No, Rob, you raised the criterion, so I'm going to hold you to it. You say we need to improve transportation. Fine. I think that's a great way to evaluate it. Does that bridge improve, with the same number of traffic lanes, improve traffic enough to be worth $3 billion of our taxpayer dollars?
You're asking me to make an engineering determination.
Well, no, I'm asking you to make a human determination. If you get in your car and you go across a bridge right now that's too crowded, and it has 3 lanes, and the new bridge will also have 3 lanes, do you need to be an engineer to know whether that's going to be a big enough improvement to be worth $3 billion?
Lars, I don't know what the nature of the new 3 lanes on either side, as you describe it, is. I simply don't know. I'm not going to be cornered into saying that I reject the current proposal or that I support another. What I am going to be very clear about, as I've been with you in the past, is that we need to improve the infrastructure in that part of our state.
Is that an improvement?
Pardon me?
Is that an improvement?
That's what I want to learn.
But by the time you get into Congress and learn all
60 days from now.
I understand, and learn all of that, will you be able to make a meaningful difference? And I guess I'd ask you, once you hit office in January, how long would it take for you to determine whether or not that is a $3 billion improvement and how to stop it if it's not?
I will get to work on it right away because it's a pressing issue. It's a pressing issue. And here's the other thing that we have to remember, Lars. You know this better than anybody. This is a project that is going to require, whether we like it or not, it's going to require the voices and the consensus of multiple parties, 2 states, at least 2 counties, at least 2 cities.
And all of those people right now are saying, build the thing the way we've designed it.
Well, that's why. Now, let me ask you this.
Sure.
If I was at the table in 60 days, looking at all these plans or the specific plan that you oppose, would you rather have me at the table scrutinizing that or my opponent, Senator Bonamici?
I'm trying to figure out if there's a difference. Because at this point, I know she supports it. And at this point, what you're telling me is there's not enough there for you to oppose it yet. So
I said that I don't know enough about it.
Right, that's what I said. There's not enough there yet for you to oppose it. So if she supports it and you don't oppose it yet, right now the net difference is 0, isn't it?
No, because I think voters will have to decide who do they trust to hold government accountable, me or someone who continually proposes we spend more government money.
All right, let me ask you a question. Do you think that if you find out that it's not worth $3 billion and it's not a good project in some period of time, I don't know if that's going to be in 60 days or after you take office or 6 months, because it won't be the only thing you'll be working on, I guess.
No, but it's a very important project.
Do you think you could stop it?
Well, I will certainly do my best. That's why I'm going to Congress.
Yeah,
that's why I've said to my party leaders in Congress look, don't expect me to be a sure vote on anything. I'm going to scrutinize everything, whether it's coming from the Republican Party, whether it's coming from the Democrat Party, or something in between. I am not going to get along. I'm going to make sure that people are being held accountable for taxpayer dollars. And I've demonstrated this just throughout my entire life running a small business, Lars. I don't know how to use other people's money. It's not in my nature to do so. For heaven's sakes, I started my business out of my savings account and didn't go to my bank for a loan for 5 years.
Rob, stick around through the break, and we'll take on some other topics, all right?
You bet.
Very good. Rob Cornilles is with us, running for Congressional District Number 1. You've got the Lars Larson Show. Welcome back to the program, 23 minutes after the hour. Rob Cornilles is with me, running for Congressional District Number 1 under the GOP ticket. We have invited his opponent, Suzanne Bonamici, on. She's not likely to come on, but we would treat her civilly if she came on. Rob probably feels like he's getting treated like a Democrat right now, but Rob, you haven't read my email from some of the folks in the reactions to your stance on the bridge. I think you've fallen off some Christmas card lists already. They're not real happy.
Well, I call it like I see it, and as I see it right now, in order for Oregon and this region, especially the first district, to be competitive, we have to improve our infrastructure here. And I will not be a part of crony capitalism. I will not be a part of paying back favors like so many career politicians do today in order to or when they approve projects. All I want to do is grow the economy here, and I'm not going to make declarative statements on any policy until I feel like I've been fully briefed on all the issues.
Well, Rob,
you're obviously briefed on this, Lars. You talk about it a lot. You study it a lot. I don't have the benefit of spending as much time on this.
No, but Rob, hold on a second. Listen, you're running for Congress. Now, I brief on all kinds of things that don't deal with the region, too. So the I'm busy excuse doesn't work. This is probably the biggest single public works project in the region in the last 10 years and in the next 10 years. So, to say, and Congress is involved in funding it out of borrowed dollars, apparently, and so there are so many of these things that really do fall right in your bailiwick. And you're saying, but I don't have time to brief on it. Well, no, Rob, that doesn't cut it.
Well, if that's the way you interpreted what I said.
Well, you said you haven't had time to brief on it. As one of my emailers said, a 6-year-old kid could tell you this bridge project is not going to improve traffic flow one iota. Rob skating around answering you makes him sound like another cheap politician. And I've got a couple of dozen emails just like that. And I'm not saying I'm the be-all and end-all, but I'm asking, if you've got a $3 billion project based a lot on congressional funding from a government that is broke, we're beyond broke. We're borrowing 42 cents of every dollar, and the Congress is going to help fund a project that doesn't improve traffic, but you say you can't tell if it improves traffic or not. I don't buy it, but, there you go. So,
well, are you suggesting I'm saying something disingenuous?
Yeah, I do. I think you're holding back from this because, if you oppose it, your opponent is going to attack you on this. And she's going to say Rob isn't in favor of all those wonderful jobs that will come from building a brand new 6-lane bridge to replace the old 6-lane bridge, and it's only $3 billion. I mean, it's one of those things that just stuns the average taxpayer to hear. We're going to buy Rob, when you got a family and you maybe had a 2-seater sports car, and you walked into the car dealership, if the guy had said, here's another 2-seater sports car, and you said, no, I need one with more capacity. I've got a family now. And the dealer said, well, you can't tell if it has more capacity till you drive it. And you say, it has 2 seats. My old car has 2 seats. Well, your answer is sounding illogical to the people who are listening, saying, how can you not tell that 3 lanes each way replaced by 3 lanes each way is no improvement? And light rail for $1 billion that nobody wants.
Well, as I said to you earlier, I will look at any reasonable proposal, and if you've got one, I'd look at it. If people have it. Yeah, I've
got one. Build an ordinary flat plain Jane bridge, just like Minneapolis did when one of their freeway bridges fell down. They got it done in 11 months for $234 million. Their bridge is half the length of this bridge. And it's light rail capable, but they are not putting light rail on it. until the voters say yes to it. And I guess.
And here's the challenge that we have. Once again, as I said, I would look at any alternative. I look at any plan. What we have to do, though, the trick is to get all the parties involved to agree to it. And I don't think Minneapolis has that challenge.
No, and you know what the problem is, Rob? Can I tell you what I think the problem is? And again, I'm just a talk show host. This is what I do, okay? But there isn't a single elected official who has championed the idea that this is a colossal waste of time and money and effort and not an improvement. Not the mayor of Portland, not the mayor of Vancouver, not the county commission of Vancouver, of Clark County, not the county commission of Multnomah, not the governor of Oregon, not the governor of Washington. Not a single damn member of the congressional delegation will champion the idea. So until an idea gets somebody who will stand up and say, this is something we have to do, or this is something we shouldn't do, that idea is going to die. And you know it. You're going to roll into Congress, and you're going to say, well, gosh, all the players say this is how we have to go. And what we're going to get, at least on this project, is nothing different than we get with Bonamici. And I'm saying that flat out.
Well, then I think you're wrong. You've been saying I'm wrong. I think you're wrong, Lars. You misjudged me. You misjudged why I'm running. And you also have to consider that just like legislation that was ran through Congress last year, historically last year, that was voted on before people had a chance to read it. Remember those days?
Yeah, I do.
I used to say when I was running last year, how can you vote on something you haven't even read?
Rob, we're up against the clock, but I'll be glad to hold you through if you want to finish.
I'd be happy to.
29 minutes after the hour. Rob Cornilles with us, 29 after the hour. You've got the Lars Larson Show. Welcome back to the Lars Larson Show, 36 minutes after the hour. Rob Cornilles with us, running for the GOP position on Congressional District 1. Suzanne Bonamici, his Democrat Party opponent. Rob, I didn't want to interrupt you, but we had a commercial break to take. I wanted to give you the opportunity to finish up.
Well, I think what I was saying was that a lot of people were upset a year ago when so much legislation was being ran through Congress, and we all knew that our representatives were not reading it. They were just voting in the dead of night, and that's the kind of mentality back in Congress that inspired me to run and motivated me, because I want accountability. I want people to know what they're voting for, and I don't want these, quote, unintended consequences that we always hear about. And so you're upset that I won't declare with any kind of doubt in my voice that the project, the Columbia River crossing, is bad.
Well, you won't say it's good either, will you?
Well, I say we have to improve, as I said before. We have to improve.
And I've asked you, is it an improvement? And you've said you don't know. Let me read you this email from April in Salem, who's apparently a young mother. Is this guy for real? I'm so tired of these politicians. I asked my 5-year-old about the bridge. 5-year-old responds, Mom, it would be the same. Throws his hands in the air. Maybe I'll write him in on the ballot. I'm so tired of the games. And I'm telling you, I get emails from people saying this is why we love Chris Christie, because when you ask him a question, you get an answer. And what you've told me, you tell me if I'm wrong. You will not say it's a good project because you're not sure yet, but you do say we need to improve. And then when I ask, well, is this $3 billion expenditure going to improve it? You say you don't know enough information about it to tell. The thing has been underway for, by some counts, 20 years, at least for 10. $100 million has been spent. At least hundreds of thousands of words have been written and said about it in the press in your district. And at this point, you still don't know enough to say it's either a good expenditure of $3 billion or a bad expenditure of $3 billion, right?
Whether you like it or not, I think it's more complex than what you're describing, Lars.
Well, I'm just asking one thing.
Whether your listeners like it or not,
Rob,
it's more complex.
Rob, I'm asking you one thing. You go to Congress, and one of the key things members of Congress do, you do basically two things. You spend money and you pass laws, okay? When you're spending money, you want your constituents to know, I will not spend your money stupidly. And I'm going to ask you this way.
Correct.
Is a $3 billion expenditure on a bridge that's the same size as the old bridge a stupid expenditure or a smart one? Can you say?
In that case, it would be a stupid expenditure.
Will you take up the cause to stop that stupid expenditure?
Of course I will. I've said that to you several times in this interview. Of course I will.
Maybe you said it before and I didn't hear it, but I was certainly hearing you say you didn't have enough information to say whether this is an improvement in transportation or not.
Well, as I've said, my role in Congress, especially from the 1st District, that hasn't had a fiscal conservative in generations, is to go back and make sure that taxpayer dollars are being properly administered and that you act as a steward of those dollars. This is one reason I decided to run for office.
Right.
Because I'm tired of frankly, career politicians who've worked their way up the political ladder just paying back favors from
I understand.
people who've gotten them.
And all I wanted to find out from you is, do you think this is a good expenditure or a bad expenditure, and will you either move to stop it or do whatever you can to stop it, or move it along?
You asked me just a moment ago if this is essentially the same type of bridge that we have today, but at a price of $3 billion, I would be absolutely the first one to stand up in the Oregon delegation or in Congress as a whole and say this is exactly why Americans are fed up with Congress. This is exactly why there's cynicism and doubt and no confidence in our government. But I'm not going to speak about the specifics of that or any proposal because I admittedly am not as well schooled on all the specifics of the proposal.
Wow.
But you understand how I look at it as a principle.
Well, I do and I don't, Rob, because on one hand, you can go back to Congress now and say, well, Lars, it's not exactly the same bridge. It has some extra on-ramps and off-ramps, and it has light rail. Now, and that gives you the wiggle room, just the way it did with Tim. This is why people don't trust politicians, Rob, even on the right. You elect a mayor in Vancouver named Tim Levitt who said, I'm against tolling the bridge. And then he comes out after he's elected and says, but I'm in favor of tolling the approaches to the bridge. Now, do you know what the difference is between tolling the bridge and tolling the approaches to the bridge? Zero. Jack and squat, all in one. And that's what we got out of a tricky politician named Levitt. And what we're worried about is the reason people want to pin you down when you don't want to be pinned down. And I understand people want to pin me down on things I don't know all the details of. But the reason they want to pin you down is because they're sick and tired of electing people, even Republicans, who are better than Democrats, who then say, oh, by the way, that thing I told you I was going to do, I'm not going to do it. And that it kills people's interest in politics. They want to say to hell with the whole thing.
Well, you can't say to hell with the whole thing.
But people do, Rob.
Well,
people do.
I know they say that, but...
Well, why shouldn't they? If they elect people who make promises and then don't follow through. In the last 5 minutes, I want to give you the chance to talk about, other than Social Security, other than Medicare, and other than the bridge, what else do you want to accomplish, and where else do you think you differ sharply from your opponent?
Well, earlier this week on Monday, we were both invited, just as we've both been invited to be on your program, we were both invited to a conference downtown with about 100 business leaders talking about job creation.
Yeah.
And this was something that we had been invited to more than 60 days ago. All the candidates were told to put it on their calendar, so it was no surprise. And I showed up, and my opponent did not. She didn't want to talk to 100 people who are responsible for hiring in our communities. And I laid out my jobs plan, a 3-pillar jobs plan. The first is we have to create a simpler, more predictable, and fair tax code, because there's no reason why we should have corporate loopholes that allow certain companies, such as GE, to make billions of dollars of profits, even overseas, and have a zero federal income tax obligation, which is what they've got. And there's about 30 other companies just like that who are actually making money off the tax code. I think that's wrong, and I think it hurts our economy. Second thing that I laid out is that, especially in the 1st District of Oregon, we have got to provide, through trade agreements that are fair and reasonable, we've got to provide more open doors for our products, because we've got some of the best products in the country coming out of the 1st District, and we've had representation in the past that was opposed to trade agreements. I'm totally in support of them because I know they'll create jobs and they'll spur the economy further in Northwest Oregon. And the third thing that I laid out is that we have to create a phased-in balanced budget amendment. That will put, to your very point in this conversation, Lars, that will put control on spending that politicians in Congress, obviously just like swiping the credit card year after year at our expense, but if you have a balanced budget amendment, it lets the people of this country, lets them dictate how much money is being spent, not politicians. And Meanwhile, my opponent, when asked what her jobs plan was, it was a 21st century WPA project.
Yeah, in other words, more borrowed money spent to hire people to be government employees. Let me ask you something else that may make you differ from her. And here's my jobs plan. Will you advocate for more logging in federal forests in Oregon and Washington?
Yes. And the reason for this is because as a native-born Oregonian, I recognize the best people to take care of our forests are these local folks who have been basically shut out of their forests. They need to manage that resource. You and I, again, have talked about this. I know it's important to you. It's important to me. Logging, the timber industry is what put Oregon on the map when I was growing up here. And I talked to just a logger this morning from Warrenton who said to me this has been the worst year in 10 years for him, and he's been in the business for generations. And it's a very sad commentary that we have bureaucrats 3,000 miles away telling Oregon conservationists, Oregon loggers, how to manage our best natural resource.
Let me ask you about something else, which would also be a good dividing point with you and Ms. Bonamici. Do you think the time has passed for the Davis-Bacon Act, the prevailing wage that's mandated on all government projects? I always think about how much more we could have done with whatever money the federal government spends if it were spent and it didn't have to mean vastly enhanced wages simply because it's a government road.
Well, that's something that in Oregon, I believe that it would be difficult to change.
Why? I hear from let me interrupt for a second. I hear from construction companies who say we're working on a project. All of a sudden, federal stimulus money is brought in by the state or local government that's doing it, and we take the same truck driver driving the same truck full of the same gravel and bump his wages from $22 an hour to $45 an hour. Why is that hard to change?
I just think that if you look at the electorate in Oregon.
No, I'm talking about the federal Davis-Bacon, not the little Davis-Bacon in Oregon. You're going to Congress, not the legislature. Right,
but I'm going back to represent Oregonians.
Okay, and do you think? Oh, so you're saying that you would not propose getting rid of Davis-Bacon at the federal level because Oregon voters don't want it gone? Okay, you're representing your liberal constituency, but it doesn't seem like a smart expenditure of money.
Well, I'm trying to put together plans, Lars, that create jobs.
Would it create more jobs if you could pave twice as much road?
I know. That's you beat me to the punchline.
And?
So I recognize that as the first district representative, that I need to be able to represent the interests of these people and the people in Oregon, as far as I'm concerned, from what I know, especially the laborers that I've spoken to. They find that the Davis-Bacon is something that they want to continue. But I want to make the cost of doing business here lower. And if that means looking at prevailing wage, et cetera, I want to do that. Cost of business, cost of labor, cost of doing business, cost of transportation, cost of energy, all of those things make doing business in Oregon very difficult.
You're right. Rob, what's your website for people to go to?
CornillesforCongress.com. And I would appreciate your listeners going there and learning more about the issues you and I have talked about, and a lot more that I've written extensively about.
Rob, thanks for the time.
Thank you, Lars.
You bet. 13 before the hour. You've got the Lars Larson Show. Welcome back to the Lars Larson Show. You know, I get the predictable response. There are an awful lot of people who are happy that I grilled Rob that way. A good Republican candidate should be able to take a grilling on issues and give you straight answers. I also get those people who say, well, you're just doing to Rob what you did to Gordon Smith. You mean asking hard questions? Yeah, because you know what happens if people like me do softballs? Then what you do is you say, oh, he sounds like a perfectly nice young man. I'll vote for him. I don't want you to vote for him because he's a nice young man. I want you to vote for him because you think he'll make the kind of representative that his region needs. Susie's on the line in Canby. Hey, Susie, welcome to the Lars Larson Show.
Thank you, Lars. A couple of things about this Columbia Crossing project really concern me a lot. Number one, no one's going to have a prayer of getting a job on this project unless they're in a union. because
True.
of all the rules and federal regulations, and that alone greatly increases the cost of building the bridge. And so, this is also going to be a big union payback, and people not in unions and willing to pay the expenses that involves are going to get shafted. And the other thing is, not only are people going to pay a large toll, which will quickly increase because these people don't have the track record that shows they can manage any money, but also, besides gas taxes and things like that, every single person who rides on MAX and public transportation is highly subsidized. They don't pay anything close to the actual cost of what it will be. And so you'll pay a toll, your taxes will go up, and they'll want all those. And also, You're going to pay to subsidize, what is it, 12 to 15 bucks?
Oh, it's
$20 a head.
I think it's going to be worse than that. And Susie, thank you very much for the call, and I appreciate the thoughts. Major Don Gilger joins us now, coordinator for the Salvation Army in the Portland area. Major, tomorrow we're going to have First Amendment Friday at Lloyd Center in honor of the Salvation Army, and we hope to raise a lot of money for you.
Excited to be there, Lars.
So tell people about the mission of the Salvation Army. I know it's a faith-based group, and that counts for points in my book, but it also means that you take care of people without regard to race, religion, or creed.
That's correct. That's exactly what the mission statement says. We help people regardless of their race, their creed, their color. We are here just to help people. And
this has been a tough money-raising season for the Army, hasn't it?
It has. Yeah, it's been unusually hard this year. We kind of got off to a slow start, and we're picking up a little progression as we go along into the season. And of course, we know our strongest 2 weeks are coming up, but we've been a little behind in donations, about 30%.
It's a tough economy, Major. I mean, there are an awful lot of people out there having a tough time, but all the more reason to support the Army. And of course, you folks have a very small administrative overhead. Most of the money people give goes straight to the cause.
That's correct, yeah. Nationally, it's about 13%. So we try to keep our overhead down and try to help as much people as we can.
Major, it's a pleasure to have you on. I'll see you tomorrow at the remote at Lloyd Center.
Looking forward to it, Lars. Really thanks to you for your support of the Army.
Glad to do it. Major Don Gilger with us. Here's the thing. Every year we've done a fundraiser for the Salvation Army, going back, I think, all the way back before Katrina. We love doing it because they represent conservative values, a faith-based organization that takes care of people no matter what your faith is, an organization that puts nearly every dollar straight to the bottom line and has a very small administrative overhead. You meet people who work in the Salvation Army, you know they have to be working there because they love it and because they feel called to it, because you know they're not doing it for the paycheck. 3 minutes before the top of the hour. Join me tomorrow at Lloyd Center. It'll be noon till 6 p.m. on the lower level right next to the Angel Giving Tree. We'll be glad to see you there for First Amendment Friday on the Lars Larson Show.